always the horizon. Murdoch. November 2021. Narrated by Skeptical Waves using an AI voice clone of Murdoch. Godders, fashion. We now make our way to the great metropolis in twilight. Hopefully, there we will find an inn for a proper supper and rest. Yesterday we were wild men, but tonight we must be the civilized, for we are Aryan after all. We follow the path, limping ever forward until we reach the gates of the city. There we spot a soldier who stands alone on the wall. I call out to him. How strange that such an immense city would only house a single soldier on its walls. He looks down at me and with a stoic expression retorts, I am the only soldier left who defends this city. The others have abandoned their posts. Some have left this place entirely, but most have joined ranks with those who wish to tear down these very walls in the name of peace. Peace? I mutter out. Do they not realize the walls are the very things which have maintained peace? The soldier responds with gloom. This city was once a beacon of light in our dark world, but as of late she has grown dim. For I fear I am the last ember. Truly, there are no more heroes in this city, and when I die, so too will the last of the men who wish to guard the memory of her flame. We continue our way into the dying metropolis. Stay close, rider, for this place has an uncanny way of robbing innocence and polluting what is clean. On every corner and in every alleyway there lurks those who harbor malice for the European continuum. Rarely, if ever, do they appear in the open with their machinations, for it is their way to hide in the shadows. However, when they do reveal themselves, they always assume the position of a messiah, one who must break down pre-existing culture and bring forth a new morality. Come, let us find shelter for tonight, but know this, as soon as the sun rises in the morning, we will be off. It is well with me to never stray in a place of decay for too long, lest we become part of the festering. Suddenly, we see a man dressed in red, calling out to a crowd who gathers around him. He shouts and points his fingers as he states, it is the capitalists, the aristocracy, the bourgeoisie who have stolen virtue from this land. These demons who care little for we, the proletariat, must be annihilated. The crowd cheers and a rope is put around the neck of a statue which bears the likeness of the founder of this metropolis. In an instant it is pulled to the ground and the crowd once more cheers in exultation. Rider, look behind the man wearing red who raves and barks. Do you see what I see? There lies a Semitic troll, dressed in black with a small hat, who periodically whispers into his ear. Look how the man in red only makes statements after being guided by this troll. Know this. The Semitic troll cares little for capitalists or communists, for his game is the acquisition of power. Verily, it was Semitic capitalists on Wall Street who funded Lenin and the rise of that wicked Semitic Soviet state. The troll does not care if he rules with a hammer and sickle or the almighty coin, for he only cares to increase his dominance. One could quickly dismiss any charge of evil in his inner nature as being simply a survival mechanism, but one must look closer to reveal what separates monsters from men. We continue down the dimly lit streets on our search for an inn. As we walk by, we see a man painting a picture of the city skyline. It is exquisite in its detail and use of color. However, many of his works lie in the trash near his easel. I speak out to him. Your paintings are sublime. Are you from the school of the realists or the romantics? Do my eyes fool me, or do I see evidence that you are a master of impressionism as well? For there are many styles and representations of reality in your works that lie in these trash bins. Surely your art should reside on walls, rather than in the waste? Perhaps if you would sell your works, rather than throwing them away, you may become rich and famous. He smiles, yet his eyes maintain their despondency when he lets out, Thank you, friend. However, my works are no longer fashionable. In confusion, I mutter out, Is the beautiful no longer in fashion? He turns and points to the massive artworks that adorn the tall buildings. In this dying city as he speaks, for the new artist has come and made me irrelevant. We look up to where he points and behold what modernity calls art, crude images pulled together to glorify ugliness. Each work only bearing two similarities, the inaptness of the artists and a plaque written by some Semitic troll with the affirmation of the work's genius quality. My eyes finally return to his as I let out, I see, so beauty has gone out of style after all. Our journey continues as we pass into an alleyway. There we encounter a police officer, on his knees, surrounded by a pack of Negroes. He is weeping madly as he cries out, "Please, I didn't mean to offend you. I must have been in error." I call out to the police officer, "What are you doing on the ground, whimpering?" He looks to me as tears stream from his eyes and he says, "I thought I had seen these fine men walk out with wares from a local shop without paying." The shopkeeper pointed them out, but he must have been mistaken. One of the Negroes declares, "He ain't mistaken. He lyin', he racist. Jews like dis pig who cry like woman. We's didn't do nothing. We's good boys." The officer cries out, "No, I swear I'm not racist. Please, if anyone hears what you're saying, I'll lose my job. I have a wife and child and..." I cut the officer off as I look over the Negroes. What exactly were they accused of stealing? The officer once again turns to us as he proclaims, "It was nothing really, just a television and a few liquor bottles." The Negroes do nothing to hide what they hold, each carrying televisions or entire cases full of alcohol. A Negro calls out, "Yo, you doesn't own this city no more. Dim new laws mean you can't do shit." In confusion, I speak to the police officer. "New laws?" The officer winces and cries out, "I had completely forgotten that it was no longer legal to apprehend you fine gentlemen, as I am of the old type and you are of the new. As I am ugly and light-colored and you yourselves are beautiful and dark. Please, good sirs, have mercy." For I didn't realize that our beloved Semitic troll mayor had already implemented his new great societal law. A Negro kicks the officer lower to the ground and barks out, "We have mercy today." He spits on the officer, and the other Negroes begin laughing, squealing in delight as they walk away. We too walk away, for I cannot bear to see such groveling. As we exit the alleyway, we see a parade passing through the streets. There we spot men, women, and children, all colored in rainbow paint. They laugh and sing. "Rejoice, for the children of this world have been freed from the shackles of Western norms. Love is love." Riding in a float high above the street resides an old withered Semitic troll, smiling and waving as he passes by. Next to him, on each side, are little boys and girls. Today they have been told to rejoice, for they are heroes, yet their smiles do not hide their confusion and fear. On each side of the float, men, half nude, dance and touch themselves, throwing beads to the crowd below. Once again, the hatred forms deep in my gut. My hand grabs my dagger beneath the cloak, but we must not act, for though we may slay Semitic hobgoblins and trolls in the wild, here in their domain, we are outnumbered by thousands. As one float passes, another comes our way. On this decorated platform stand faux women, who were once men next to the scientists, the clergy of Nu. Towering above them, a large painting of Magnus Hirschfeld serves to remind the audience of the glory of the Semitic cause towards equality. A new float emerges carrying screeching nude women chanting, "Women of the world, free yourselves from the shackles of the patriarchy. Meet men always with mistrust." There, on a plaque in the middle of their display, features various names of Semitic female trolls and their accomplishments. "Come, writer, we draw too close to this river of poison. Let us find our inn for the night." Finally, we stumble upon a small pub with an inn upstairs. A lantern hangs on a sign in front of the entrance that reads, "Burger Broikeller." Moths circle the lantern's flame, bringing respite to my weary heart and serving as a reminder of our own chase of the sun. We enter the inn and find ourselves a warm room and dry beds. Writer, before we rest, I must explain something to you. Tonight, as we passed from place to place in this dreadful city, I saw firsthand the workings of the Obfuscator. This creature who craves the withered branch, who wishes to gouge out the eye of being. Do you understand why he bears this name? For he is the mortal enemy of the seeker. He desires, above all else, the rejection of truth. That which does not conform to his megalomania is ruthlessly stamped out and forgotten. For this creature, the Obfuscator, works against being's capacity to know itself. He yearns to warp the lens of being. Writer, do you remember the man in red who spoke with such hate for the aristocracy, the rich, the capitalist? Was this man, draped in red, born hating them, or was he manipulated by Semitic deception? Verily, it was Marx, the Semite, who first gave birth to this abortion, communism. Was it not Lenin, a Semite, who gave rise to the first communist state? Was it not the Semitic troll in every nation, there in the early 20th century, pushing for red reform? For had the bravery of the nationalist within Germany faltered, they too would have fallen victim in the schemes of this international Semitic clique. Truly, it only held back the inevitable. Here we see the Obfuscator attempt to stamp out hierarchy. There we see him wish to foment class hatred as a means of social division. For is it not true that one must divide to conquer? Here, as the capitalist, he maximizes profits by treating men as cogs. There, as the communist, he turns men into cogs for his social equality machine. However, everywhere and at all times he warps truth in the attempt to gain power. A power to fulfill his ambition. Master race. The seeker does not desire the power to dominate, simply to fulfill a myth of supremacy, but rather he dominates because of his relentless drive towards truth, even if the pursuit of truth leads to a foregoing of his own myths. Just as Socrates challenged Homer, Luther challenged the Church, the Romans challenged their king, and Hume challenged Christ. For the seeker is well equipped with adaptation for the chase of the sun. The seeker dominates as the lion dominates. Through his natural will and strength, he resides at the peak of the hierarchy of being, because his soul craves a deeper understanding of that which is. The seeker's weapon is the microscope and the paintbrush, the pen and the sword. The obfuscator too is equipped with adaptation, but he dominates with lies and deception. His fangs take the shape of corrupted universities. His shield, a monopoly over media which promotes daily fabrications. The seeker will spill his blood for freedom so that he may pursue truth unimpeded. The obfuscator, in contrast, will spill the blood of men he calls friends, so that he may dominate both his enemies and allies, all to maintain his house of cards, his myth, and his megalomania. So too does the obfuscator hate beauty, because he does not see himself as beautiful. He sat there in envy, like a desert rat when he looked across the sea at the Hellenes. He never built works of art that conveyed the idealized form the way the Greeks had, for the Greek was said to have engaged in a massive conflict for the beauty of Helen of Troy, and that those men who waged that war were champions of strength and valor. But what of the Semite? When he looked at his women, with the likeness of the witches of European folklore, and his men, small and weak, it forced a self-reflection that challenged his profound belief of supremacy. This culminated into a deep hatred of the European form. This is why when he comes to dominate a particular field of the arts, he brings it to a lowly state, glorifying excrement and misshapen broken people. Verily, he is king of the misshapen. Tell me, is it not strange that these Semites who attain massive fortunes always seek out blonde European women? It is as if in his right hand he curses you, and with his left he begs to be more like you. Look at this creature who seeks out the precious elements of the European, so that by merging the blood it may aid him in his own megalomania. For Semite blood alone is incapable of bringing forth the overman, despite what the ascetic Semitic Aryan might say. He learns to mimic quality art, mass-producing it for a profit, never fully grasping the desire for the transcendental, for he has never known the transcendental. For even the Semitic god grows tired of his ugly chosen people. Look how he bestows faux glory to the Negro, not out of kindness, but as a means towards his social engineering. He didn't fight to give the Negro equal footing with the Aryan in America, simply to bring about equality. Through the American Negro, the Semite gained both an ally to garner political capital and a biological weapon to dull out the otherwise keen senses of the Aryan, his mortal enemy. In truth, the Semite hates the African. When alone, he regards him as less than human. Know this. From the Semite's perspective, both the Aryan and the African are mere goyim, cattle. It was in the Roman that the Semite realized his effeminate characteristics fully. These characteristics, which formed as an antithesis to Achilles, would only grow stronger the longer he was without a home to defend. For when the Roman had successfully destroyed Jerusalem and the Second Temple, the Semite lost any masculinity he possessed. For now he had to put away the sword and take up the coin as his sole weapon. Now he would be like a woman, unable to defend himself and forced to rely on the strength of others. How fortunate for him that the Roman Empire would later adopt his Semitic god, for otherwise surely he would have perished. Over time, this warping led him to look for the noble in all deformed sexuality. Truly, it was a search to find nobility from within, a nobility that simply did not exist. This pursuit culminated in his thesis of the authoritarian personality, which he lobbed at the Aryan in the 20th century. Armed with this meme, he swore to break down the Aryan's familial structures. The intellectual Semite will be quick to remind you of the Hellenes and their supposed love of homosexuality. Yet never does he speak of the Athenian laws that barred homosexuals from becoming one of the 9 archons or acting as an advocate for the state. In truth, the Semite cares little for feminists and transvestites, for they are merely tools to be used to deconstruct the European continuum's sense of family. Every step forward the obfuscator takes, he does so to gouge out the eye of being. For if he is successful in his destruction of the European continuum, then he will indeed reign supreme, but at what cost? A world where mankind has been made into a semi-bestial form? A world where the nuclear family is passé? A world where paintings made of feces are hailed as powerful and brave for challenging social norms, while our monuments, glorifying the beauty of being, are made artificially unfashionable. A world where men see themselves as classes rather than as countrymen, as brothers? A world full of bleached blonde Jewesses with misshapen bodies, who carve out chunks of their noses so that they can look more like the very people they swore to destroy? An ugly world that hates the beautiful? In the end, I wonder, will the Semite's atom bomb fall into the hands of primitive forms of man? Is it possible that these archaic subspecies, who will inevitably rise up against the Semite with their sheer numbers, will not maintain caution and will bring forth the total annihilation of life on Earth? An end to being's awareness of itself, the end of the knowing. Writer, you must understand this. Just as there are Europeans who would aid in the advancement of the unknowing, there also exist Semites who assist in the elevation of the knowing. However, we must look at the continuum as a whole. Just as there are Europeans who hate the beautiful, despite the European continuum yearning for beauty, there too exist Semites who yearn for truth, despite the Semitic continuum craving mythical supremacy. This is another of mankind's inconsistencies we must face, for we can see both the individual and the collective. Neither can be discarded completely. I say this to you so that you understand. The seeker isn't inherently Aryan, and the obfuscator isn't inherently the Semite. The Aryan merely maintains that position today, but if he was to be totally annihilated, then a new people would take up the call to chase the sun. It would be up to them to be the guardians of knowing, even if they are less capable of advancing the knowing, because of their cultural or genetic properties. Their continuum will still yearn for that which is. For only a people who value truth can take up the title of seeker. Even if our kind were to be lost forever to time, being would find a new champion, a greater lens for its means of knowing. The obfuscator too can change in time. For if the Semite was to be destroyed entirely by the Aryan, would the title of obfuscator not go to the Red Dragon, the Han, who surely see themselves as the chosen, whose power acquisition is in rapid expansion here in the 21st century? Even if the blood of the Chinese has its own positive qualities, Marxism has made its way into their minds, thus perverting their perception of reality, forming within them the necessary characteristics to occupy the position of obfuscator, to warp truth in the pursuit of supremacy and ideology. However, if the Aryan was to be annihilated by the Semite, it is possible the Chinese would, in time, due to their natural-born intelligence and creativity, throw off the shackles of Marxism and take up the role of the seeker. Verily, if the new man comes into being, who is equipped with even greater faculties to aid in the quest towards the sun, and were the Aryan to hate him for his greatness, then so too could the Aryan become the obfuscator. You must rid yourself of supremacy, for megalomania and truth are not congruent. Being is that which is, not what we wish it to be. You must aid the knowing relentlessly. You must make yourself an enemy of those who would warp truth and its pursuit. Even if we are surpassed one day by the new man, the overman, then we must aid him in his journey on the horizon. For we are all aspects of being, conclusions of its inner desire to know. Try eat. to see itself, to feel itself. Now let us sleep, Ryder. Tomorrow we must once again look out at the horizon and chase the sun. Our heads hit the pillows and our eyes shut. Once more I dream of Aphrodite. Suddenly we are awakened by the sounds of chaos and panic. Women scream and men shout as I open the window from our room. There, out on the horizon, I see it, coming over the hills at great speed, like a tidal wave of black. This sea of unknowing, which makes way, devours all life. Sentience, sapience, even the possibility to feel, all will be obliterated upon being submerged in this black tsunami composed of nothing. For if it were to claim all of our world, then being would lose all possibilities of knowing. There would be no more beauty, for there would no longer exist beings capable of looking out and reflecting on being. Ryder, we must hurry, for we have little time. Quickly, we find horses and make our way out of the doomed city. Just as we reach the city gates, we again spot the lone soldier on the wall. I call out to him, "Friend, it is time for you to forego defending decay. Come, join my comrade and I in our pursuit of the sun." His eyes stay looking out at the horizon, at the oncoming torrent, as he replies, "This is the city my father's father built. It is my destiny to defend it to the end." I pause for a moment and then reply, "You were wrong to say there were no more heroes who dwell in this city." I raise my arm to give him a Roman salute. He turns his head and smiles, returning the gesture. "Come, Ryder, it is not our destiny to defend decay. As we make our escape, we move to find higher ground, out towards the mountain peaks. There we witness the metropolis in twilight, finally submerged by the wave of the nothing, completely lost to time. For not even the grass that circled the walls of the city remains, the landscape now resembling an alien world, devoid of life. The insects and birds, men and women, the old and young, even the streets and towers have been completely erased. However, there where the lone soldier stood lies a mound of debris. Small fragments of the city wall, with a few moths who hover above, are now all that remain of that once great city of light.